Hi, everyone, and welcome to Tea Break English, the podcast where you can take a little break, grab a cup of tea, and practice your English through natural conversations. I'm Alex.
And I'm Emma. It's lovely to have you with us again. So, wherever you are, take a moment to relax, get comfortable, and enjoy this little English break with us.
Today, we're talking about something that I think almost everyone can relate to: friendship. More specifically, we're asking a slightly sad question. Why do some friendships fade away?
Yes, and I think it's an interesting question because when we think about a friendship ending, we often imagine that something dramatic happened. Maybe two people had a huge argument, someone said something hurtful, or there was some kind of betrayal. But that's not always what happens. Sometimes a friendship simply becomes quieter and quieter until one day you realize that you haven't spoken to that person for months.
Exactly. And sometimes you don't even know when it happened. You might have been really close to someone 5 or 10 years ago. You talked every day, you knew everything about each other's lives, and you probably couldn't imagine not being friends. Then life changes. You move somewhere else, you get a new job, you meet new people, and suddenly you're not part of each other's daily lives anymore.
That actually reminds me of a friend I had at university. We were extremely close. We studied together, had lunch together almost every day, and spent hours talking about our plans for the future. We always said that we'd stay close after graduation. And we really meant it at the time. But after university, she moved to another city and I started working full-time. At first, we called each other regularly. But then the calls became less frequent. Eventually, we were only sending each other birthday messages.
Yeah, that's such a common experience. I think one of the biggest reasons friendships fade is simply that people get busy. When you're young, friendship doesn't require much planning because you naturally see your friends every day. You go to the same school or university, or maybe you live in the same neighborhood. But when you're an adult, meeting a friend can feel like arranging a small event. You have to check your schedule, they have to check theirs, and sometimes both of you are exhausted.
Absolutely. And I think there's another problem. We often tell ourselves, "I'll call my friend tomorrow." You genuinely want to call them, but then you have a busy day. The next day you're tired, so you postpone it again. Then a week passes, and you suddenly feel a little embarrassed because you haven't replied to their last message. And instead of sending a simple message, you wait even longer because now you don't know what to say.
Yes, exactly. And that's when a small gap can become a big gap. I think people sometimes assume that their friends will always be there, so they don't make enough effort to maintain the relationship. We might think, we're good friends, they know I care about them. But even strong friendships need attention. If you never make time for someone, eventually they may feel like they're no longer important to you.
I agree, but I also think we should be careful about blaming ourselves or other people. Sometimes people simply grow apart. You can care about someone and still realize that your lives are going in completely different directions. Maybe you used to have the same interests, but your priorities have changed. One person might become very focused on their career, while the other wants to travel or start a family. It doesn't necessarily mean that either person has done anything wrong.
That's a really important point. Growing apart doesn't always mean that the friendship was a failure. Sometimes a person can be very important to you during one particular period of your life. They might help you through a difficult time, make you laugh when you need it, or simply share some wonderful memories with you. Even if you eventually stop talking, that doesn't erase the value of the friendship.
Exactly. And sometimes I think we put too much pressure on friendships. We expect every close friendship to last forever, and if it doesn't, we think something went wrong. But people change. We change. Our circumstances change. Some friendships last for 50 years, while others last for 5 years. Both can be meaningful.
I completely agree. But what do you think about reconnecting with an old friend? Let's say you haven't spoken to someone for 5 years. Would you feel comfortable sending them a message?
I think I would. In fact, I think people sometimes worry too much about what the other person will think. They might say, "It's been so long, it would be strange to message them now." But honestly, I think most people are happy when an old friend reaches out. You don't need a perfect reason. You can simply say, "Hey, I was thinking about you today. How have you been?"
That's true. And you might be surprised by the response. Maybe they've also been thinking about you but didn't know whether they should contact you. Sometimes both people are waiting for the other person to make the first move.
Exactly. And even if you don't become as close as you were before, reconnecting can still be nice. You can catch up, talk about what has happened in your lives, and remember the good times. You don't have to recreate the friendship exactly as it was. You can start from where you are now.
I really like that idea. Maybe friendships don't always have to stay the same. They can change as we change. Sometimes you talk every day, sometimes once a month, and sometimes once every few years. The important thing is that when you do talk, the connection is still there.
Yes. And I think one of the most valuable things we can do is appreciate the friendships we have now. If someone is important to you, don't always assume they'll know it. Send the message, make the phone call, invite them for coffee. Sometimes a 5-minute conversation can make a much bigger difference than we realize.
That's a lovely way to look at it. So maybe if you're listening right now, and there's someone you haven't spoken to in a long time, this is your little reminder to reach out.
You never know. Maybe they're waiting for your message too.
And that brings us to the end of today's Tea Break English.
We hope you enjoyed this conversation and picked up some useful English along the way. Remember, you don't need to understand every single word. Just listen, relax, and enjoy the conversation.
Thanks for spending your tea break with us.
And we'll see you in the next episode.
Until then, take care.
Bye!